What's going on, everybody? I want to do a retrospective of Guns N' Roses' album, The Spaghetti Incident. And, with the 23rd anniversary of the album happening this week, I want to take a look back at the album, talk about the history of the album, and let you guys know some facts that maybe you didn't know before about the album. So, The Spaghetti Incident is the fifth studio album from GNR. It was released in November of 1993, November 23rd, 1993 to be exact, and it would prove to be the Gunners' last studio release before Matt, and Duff parted ways. Now, it's the first Guns N' Roses album to not feature Izzy Stradlin on rhythm guitar. Contrary to popular belief, even though a lot of these songs were recorded during the time Izzy was actually in the band, he never actually played on the final record. A lot of his parts were erased, and Gilby Clarke actually played on this album. This is actually the only Guns N' Roses recording where Gilby Clarke played on the album, with the exception of Live Era. Now, a lot of the original tracks were recorded during the Use Your Illusion recording sessions. Guns N' Roses recorded a bunch of cover tunes to kind of take the pressure off coming up with new material. And then they'd originally planned to actually release the album alongside the Illusions records, and then they eventually deferred it to 1992. There was talk in 1992 of them releasing an EP, a punk EP, but eventually they decided to add a couple more songs and then do a full album release in late 1993 to tide fans over, because as you guys know, they ended the Use Your Illusion tour in 1993, and they wanted to release something to tide fans over until their next recording. Now, the actual title of the album, a lot of people have been wondering about for years, but the actual meaning of the album was confirmed by Duff McKagan in an interview he did in 1993 with a French TV show called Metal Express, and it's also been confirmed by Slash in his autobiography. Now, the Spaghetti Incident refers to a food fight between Axl Rose and Steven Adler. The band was rehearsing in Chicago in 1989 for the Illusions records. They had rented an apartment above an Italian restaurant, and apparently there was a food fight between Steven Adler and Axl Rose. I've also heard that Duff said in an interview that during that time in Chicago, Steven Adler had a lot of drug addictions, and he used to refer to his crack cocaine as his spaghetti because he used to put it in the fridge next to the band's Italian takeout containers. Now, I should say before continuing this video, if you guys want to watch any of the interviews I've referenced, I've linked to them all below so you guys can enjoy them in their entirety. I also want to let you guys know that when it comes to the title, The Spaghetti Incident, if you guys have ever watched the behind the scenes of Guns N' Roses making the Estranged video, there's a scene in there towards the end of the actual video where Slash and Axl, or with their photographer Robert Johnny, you could see them discussing the Spaghetti Incident and what the name of the album should be. In fact, Duff said in his 1993 interview that when he was in court for the Steven Adler deposition, he was asked by Steven Adler's lawyer to tell him about the Spaghetti Incident. And that's when Duff decided, this would be a great idea or a great title for our upcoming punk album. So that's where they decided to actually use the title. Now, if you guys look at the front cover of the Spaghetti Incident, you'll notice that at the bottom there's a cipher, which is basically a code that was put on the album. Now, it wasn't cracked until I think about 2006 by some Guns N' Roses fans on the MyGNR forums. And it basically reads "fuck 'em all." It was a cipher that was used by Zodiac Killer, who, interestingly enough, it's not the only reference to a serial killer on this actual album. Now, Axl was the one who probably came up with it. Duff was asked about the cipher back in 2006 by a fan. He said he didn't even know that there was a cipher on the front cover of the album, and Slash said he couldn't remember what it meant, and that Axl would be the only one who knew what it meant. What's also interesting about the Spaghetti Incident is it's the first Guns N' Roses album that was released that was never actually supported with a tour. In an interview that Slash did back in 1995 when he was promoting Slash's Snake Pit, he wanted to get the band and go do some club shows to promote the Spaghetti Incident, but he said at that time Axl just wasn't into the idea. Now, what's also interesting to note is that while most of the songs were recorded during the Use Your Illusion sessions, there were several songs that were added later on to basically make this album a more well-rounded album and add a few more tracks. Two of those were Since I Don't Have You by the Skyliners. That was actually recorded in 1993 when Guns N' Roses was playing a show in Boston as part of the Skin and Bones tour. And then Look at Your Game Girl, which was recorded later on in 1993, probably sometime after Stephanie Seymour and Axl Rose broke up. Now, what's also interesting about this album is that it also features lead vocals by Slash. So Slash sings lead vocals on the song Buick McCain, and Duff McKagan sings on the tracks Attitude, New Rose, and You Can't Put Your Arm Around Memory, including a few other tracks as well. Also, Hanoi Rocks frontman Michael Monroe also guest stars on the album on the track Ain't It Fun. It was actually his idea for Guns N' Roses to record the song. Axl had never heard of the song before by the Dead Boys, and Mike Monroe played him the song one day, and Axl loved it and called the rest of the band members and said, "We got to record this." What's also interesting is that Mike Monroe actually lived with a couple of the guys from the Dead Boys back in the day. The song was somewhat sentimental for him when they recorded it. Now, contrary to popular belief, a lot of the actual royalties from the spaghetti incident didn't actually go to the Gunners. In fact, a lot of times when a band records a cover song, a lot of the money ends up going to the original writers. So there was one interview that was actually done with Cheetah Chrome, who was a member of the Dead Boys, and he was an original writer of the song Ain't It Fun. And he said that he received enough royalties from the spaghetti incident to move to a new city, buy a house, and not have to work for a while. In fact, in 1994, in an interview Axl did with Slash on Rockline, he joked that the spaghetti incident was originally going to be called the Pension Fund. And Duff McKagan's also said in the 1993 interview with Metal Express, which I referenced earlier, that they also wanted to do the album to pay homage to the bands who had influenced Guns N' Roses and also help out some of these guys since they didn't make a lot of money in their musical career. Now, what was also interesting about the spaghetti incident was the timing of when the album was released. So you guys see in July of 1993, Guns got off the road with the Use Your Illusion tour, but they still released a video for Estranged. So in the summer of 1993, they shot the video for Estranged, and they released it in December of 1993, a month after the spaghetti incident came out, which seemed to confuse a lot of people. Now, Guns N' Roses also recorded a couple other songs for the album, but they never ended up making it on the record. No explanation was ever actually given by this, but the Guns did record Beer and a Cigarette by Hanoi Rocks and Down on the Street by the Stooges. It was also interesting to note that the album features a mashup of the T-Rex song Buick McCain and Big Dumb Sex by Soundgarden. It was actually Slash's idea to mash those two songs together. Now, it wouldn't be a Guns N' Roses release without some controversy, so included as a hidden track with the spaghetti incident right after I Don't Care About You was a track called Look at Your Game Girl, which was originally recorded by Charles Manson. And Axl had recorded this song without Slash, without Duff, or Matt Sorum. The only people who actually play on Look at Your Game Girl is Axl, of course, his gardener Carlos, and Dizzy Reed on the bongos. And it was originally recorded by Axl as a message to Stephanie Seymour. And naturally, when the track was revealed to be on the album, there was much outrage over the inclusion of it on the album. And the biggest outrage was due to the fact that there was a potential for Charles Manson to actually receive royalties from the song. And it was originally revealed that for every 1 million albums sold, Charles Manson could be entitled to about $62,000 in royalties. It was later revealed that even though it originally first thought that Manson would receive royalties from the song, any royalties from the song would actually be given to one of Manson's victims' families. And Axl pledged to donate part of his performance royalties to an environmental charity, while Geffen Records said they would donate their share of royalties from the song to the Doris Tate Crime Victims Bureau. And in a 1994 interview that Axl did with Rockline with Slash, they were asked by a fan as to whether they would remove the song off any future pressings of the album, and they said that they had no plans to. And then Axl revealed that a fan had actually threatened to sue the band if they did remove the song off the spaghetti incident. However, later on it was announced they were going to remove the hidden track off of the spaghetti incident for any future pressings of the album. But strangely enough, here we are almost 23 years later and the track is still on the album. There's no explanation that's been given for why it was never removed. And if you guys have seen any footage from Guns N' Roses in 1993, you'll know that Axl always used to wear like a Charles Manson shirt that says Charlie Don't Surf. And Axl actually addressed why he did that. He said it was sort of like tongue-in-cheek. It was because people always like to label him as a bad guy and a certain kind of person, and he said he's nothing like Charles Manson. During the same Rockline interview, Axl actually revealed that the band at that time was working on 2 music videos as part of the spaghetti incident. One was Since I Don't Have You, which of course came out and is all over YouTube. And then the other one was Ain't It Fun, which eventually never ended up coming out. Now, if you guys have seen the Since I Don't Have You video, you'll know that Gary Oldman makes a guest appearance. He plays the devil in the video. And if you've read Slash's book, he revealed that around this time he was partying a lot with Gary Oldman. And it was one day they were hanging out and Slash told him to come with him on the set. And Gary wasn't even supposed to be in the original video. He just disappeared behind the makeup, and then he came out and decided he was going to be in the video. And then shortly after the video was done shooting, Slash revealed that Gary Oldman ended up checking himself into rehab. And, you know, let's talk about some of the live performances of some of these songs on the record. So there's a couple songs that were performed a lot on the Use Your Illusion tour. Most notably, Attitude was performed pretty much for all the shows with Duff singing lead vocals. We also had Down on the Farm premiere in 1990 when Guns N' Roses was playing Farm Aid. This was actually the last song Steven Adler played live with the band before being kicked out. If you guys watch the performance, it seems like they never even told Steven they were going to play the song. As you can see, he looks a bit confused. Also, the song New Rose and You Can't Put Your Arms Around a Memory have been played extensively on the Guns N' Roses reunion tour. Also footage of Izzy Stradlin and Duff McKagan playing New Rose backstage in 1991, just prior to a Guns N' Roses show as well. Also, the song Since I Don't Have You was never performed in its full entirety live, but there are little snippets of Guns N' Roses teasing the song in 1993 at a couple shows in Connecticut, I believe. One is just before Paradise City, and the other one is just before Sweet Child of Mine as well. Those are some fantastic full-length concerts that have been captured, so I recommend you guys go check them out. There's also a performance of Axl doing Hair of the Dog at a Rip magazine party back in 1990. There was, of course, also an interview done recently with the Damned's David Banian. He was asked about what he thought about Guns N' Roses' cover of New Rose. He said it's not really his cup of tea because they knocked all the life out of it by making it sound as if though it had been played to a click track. He also said that he thinks the spontaneity had gone out of it, but they obviously loved the song, and that's great. He said they're a good band with a great guitar, so what can you say? If they'd taken the song and completely redone it in a totally different way, then perhaps they would have done something more interesting. Clark did an interview in 1994 with Kerrang! Magazine. Around the time there was rumors that he was fired from the band. He was asked what his thoughts were on Since I Don't Have You because it was about to be released as a single. He said he hated the song, and he was actually surprised that it ended up making its way onto the record. He also revealed that a lot of people were surprised in the band to learn that the Charles Manson track made it onto the final album. And then in an interview Slash did in 1993 with a magazine called Okej, which I believe is maybe a European magazine, he revealed that he hated working with Izzy Stradlin, and this was a really easy record to make because he could finally escape Izzy. He said he never liked the way Izzy played on previous Guns records. And then finally, this will be an interesting tidbit for you guys. In a 2009 interview Axl Rose did with Spinner.com, he was asked about Slash's guitar playing over the last several years and over the last couple decades, and Axl revealed he was not a fan of Slash's guitar playing. Now, this was the height of the Guns N' Roses feud going on between Axl and Slash. He also revealed in the interview that he was not a fan of Slash's guitar playing on the Spaghetti Incident or the interview with the Vampire track Sympathy for the Devil. He said it just wasn't there for him on those two recordings. Before we finalize this last part of this video, let's talk about one more thing, which is how well the album did. There was 3 singles released from the album. The first one was Ain't It Fun, the second one was Since I Don't Have You, and the third one was Hair of the Dog. Now, Ain't It Fun and Since I Don't Have You were both included on the Greatest Hits compilation that Guns N' Roses put out in 2004. And Since I Don't Have You was the highest charting single from the actual album. It peaked at number 69 on the US Billboard Hot 100, and it peaked at number 10 in the UK. Now, the overall album sold about 190,000 copies in its first week, which was good enough to land it on the number 4 spot in the US, which is respectable, but it was not anywhere near as successful as the previous Guns N' Roses recordings, largely because there just wasn't a lot of promotion for the album. There wasn't a tour to support it as well. So before I end this video, guys, I also want to let you know that there's a bunch of Spaghetti Incident interviews on YouTube. There's a couple that Slash has done, with one with MTV and one with a French television network in Montreal. And then there's also, of course, a great interview you guys should all listen to. It's the 1994 Rockline interview that Axl and Slash did together, and it's the last interview Axl actually gave before reemerging in 1999 with an interview he did with Kurt Loder. So that does it for my recap of the Spaghetti Incident. I hope you guys learned some things that maybe you didn't know before. Let me know what fact you found the most interesting, and maybe let me know what you didn't know before that you learned in this video. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, make sure you subscribe for the latest Guns N' Roses news. Take care.